How do, guys, and welcome back to an Angler's Diary and the lockdown files, week 6. You may recall at the end of last week I was heralding the return of the Boris to his desk, and keen to see what his immediate impact would be on proceedings. Well, to be frank, I was disappointed. He was virtually invisible for most of the week, and I suspect the baby Boris may well have had a part to play in all of that. Interesting thing this week, the conversation about the debate about the review of the future seemed to get underway with significantly more vitality, to the extent that week 7 of the lockdown could prove to be something of a milestone on this viral journey that we've been on, because in addition to the next legal review of the lockdown, we've now been promised a roadmap for the future, and in particular how the lockdown may be relaxed. As the conversations developed, you sensed there was a growing awareness of the transfer of responsibilities from central government to the back to the individual, which would be a fundamental part of any relaxation of the lockdown. At one level, you could argue that the lockdown has been pretty easy, in as much as somebody else has been making all the decisions and all we had to do was do as we were told. And in the main, that's exactly what we've all done. Alright, I know there's been the odd gung-ho Johnny who seems to suffer from a surplus of self-importance, who has refused to follow the guidelines, but in the main, we've done exactly as we were asked. The transfer of responsibilities from central government as the lockdown releases and we are given more freedoms means that we all have new responsibility. We all now have to make decisions, or we will have to make decisions for ourselves. And with that, there seems to be a growing sense of caution amongst people as to the responsibilities they're about to be asked to accept. I mean, just because somebody says the shops are open, you can go to the shopping centre, will you really go? And if the travel restrictions begin to be relaxed, will you really want to travel? Would you get on a bus? Would you feel safe to get on an aeroplane? All of these things are what we could face in the not so distant future. I think week 7 of the lockdown could be interesting for all sorts of reasons. And what of week 6's fishing interest? Well, I'm afraid my fishing this week was restricted to binge watching YouTube videos, apart from a few hours when I was messing around with the carp fishing gear in order to make the alcohol fueled introduction to this video. It's been down to YouTube for me this week. There was one interesting development in the early part of week 6, and that was the publication of a report and recommendations by the Angling Trust under the title of When We Fish Again, which has been sent to government for consideration as part of the overall review of the lockdown restrictions, with the obvious intent of trying to get angling restarted. The Angling Trust is a self-appointed organisation made up of various people, ex-politicians, trade representatives, anglers with a public profile. Their mission statement is to try and coalesce the interests of all of the various angling disciplines under one umbrella and become the voice of recreational fishing, I guess. I'm not a member, but as the details of the report began to be widely distributed on social media, there was, perhaps not surprisingly, a fair degree of support from the angling fraternity for the initiative that the Angling Trust had taken. The way anglers see it is that angling can be as social or as distancing as you want to make it. I mean, I enjoy going fishing with my mates, But if I was to sit down and work it out, I suspect the majority of my fishing time I fish on my own. And the same could be said for many other hobbies and pastimes. You can play golf on your own. The trouble is, of course, that all of these pastimes and hobbies fall foul of the non-essential travel restrictions. But if, as is likely, those travel restrictions begin to be softened, then who knows, perhaps some of these hobbies and pastimes and perhaps angling can get started again. One thing that did surprise me was that there was quite a significant amount of people who actually objected to the initiative that the Angling Trust had taken, on the basis that the virus isn't going anywhere, it's still there, and getting fishing started again was an avoidable risk in terms of health of friends, family and the wider nation. And this comes back to what I was talking about earlier, and the transfer of responsibility for decision making from government to the individual. It's okay for people to say, I just want to go fishing. But when it comes down to it, making the actual decision to go is a different matter altogether. If the rules were changed and we were told we could go fishing, would I go fishing? Well, after some thought, to be honest, I don't really know. I do think, though, that it may well be some time before I have to make that decision. We'll see, perhaps a little better next week. Till then, take care, look after each other, and bye for now.